Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome, everybody, to the House of the Unusual podcast. Once again, I am your host, Joe Pavlansky. With me, as always, is the maestro of mail order mysteries and owner of House of the Unusual, Eddie Guevara. Today's special guest is her first time on the podcast, and her name is Jenny Crabtree. Jenny, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And since this is your first time on, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And why don't you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, great. Yeah. So my name's Jenny. I'm in the Jersey City area. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from the old world, but I've lived in the States for 6 years now. Unfortunately, never adopted the accent from you guys, as hard as I try.
Okay, awesome. So what are some of your interests and all that? What are you into? Any hobbies or anything?
I mean, I'm a little boring, to be honest. My main hobby is running. Eddie usually sees me running up and down the streets all hours of the day. But I also am particularly interested in urban legends and things like that around my region. So coming from the UK originally, we have quite a lot of different ones relating to just all the different influences we have in Europe. So some are from religion, some are from just tales, things like that. So I've done a lot of research into that, which I was hoping to share with you guys today.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, that is going to be our topic tonight. We're going to really dig in deep to some urban legends and explain, how they affect society and why these urban legends were put in place. And that's awesome that you like to run. I run once in a while myself whenever my legs feel up to it. But Eddie,
it's a little bit warm at the moment. It's the only thing.
Yeah, you know what? I was out today. I went for a little mile jog, and it was too hot to go any further. We got up to, I think it was like 92 here, and I'm in Northeast Ohio, and
yeah,
I just missed the rain, so it's got humid then. So,
gosh.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain here the next few days. Now I know you guys are getting all of our rain out there in the Jersey area. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Eddie, so what's new over at House of the Unusual?
Okay, Joe, we're getting ready for something big on July 29th. I believe it's going to be the same time, 10:30 p.m. or 10 p.m., the same way we did a podcast before. And we went live. This time we're going live with Chuck Caputo. He's going to introduce his magic line that I'm almost finished with. We're going to have a total of about 5 or 6 individual magic tricks designed by him, put together by the House of the Unusual, and it's going to launch on that particular day. So it's going to be July 29th. So all the listeners out there, tune in to either Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and you'll be able to see us live.
Awesome.
So other than that, Joe, everything is looking good. So let's go ahead with the show.
All right, sounds good. So before we get on to our topic, just a few quick announcements for our listeners out there. You could find us over at houseoftheunusual.com. We have an awesome website there. There's a free forum to join. You could talk with some like-minded people about your specific hobbies, interests, and maybe pick up some new ones. And we also have a YouTube page. Just type in on the search House of the Unusual, and you will find our site there. Subscribe to it. Check out our videos and like them. And that way you guys, support us so that we could keep doing this podcast and put out more magic lines and all kinds of different stuff. Also, the new issue of Scary Monsters magazine is out. It's issue 122. It's called Never Say Die issue. And it is about cheating death, trying to get around growing old. So it's a really cool topic. I do have an article in there. It's on page 86, and it has to do with the Three Stooges. It covers 2 episodes, one called All Gummed Up, and the other one is Bubble Trouble. And it is about the Stooges making a potion to, turn back the clock and make older people younger, and all the zany stuff that happens when they, of course, try to do that. It doesn't go as planned, but there's a ton of great articles in there on how to cheat death and how to become younger. So Scary Monsters 122 is now out on newsstands. You could also find it online. So that's all for the announcements, and we are going to get into urban legends.
Joe, and don't forget also to mention our friends from Stupid Comics. Is that correct?
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Stupid Comics, and the website, I want to get it correct here. It is stupidcomicsmagazine.com, and stupid is spelled STOOPID. And what it is it's a comics magazine that kind of infuses Mad Magazine, Cracked, and The Far Side all into one, and it's a load of fun. They have 4 issues out now, 0 through 3. Myself, Eddie, and a few other guys have ordered the issues, and they are absolutely fantastic. We're anxiously awaiting the 4th issue, and we will definitely update everybody when that happens. So check that out. It is stupidmagazines.com, and also support our buddy Todd Machen at sea-monkeys.com for all your underwater sea monkey needs. There's tons of cool products out there if you want to just get into sea monkeys, or if you want to kind of spruce up your collection of sea monkey stuff. There's a ton of products on there. They're always putting out some new stuff. So that's sea-monkeys.com.
One last final thing I wanted to say, Joe, which is very important, is we were going to be in the next coming issue of Stupid Magazine with a full-page ad. Unfortunately, I couldn't meet the deadline on that, so we're going to go for issue number 5, I guess.
Okay.
Or number six. But having said that, I want to give a shout-out to my special buddies, Jim, Charlie, and Mr. Lucas. And I'm sure they're hearing this program. They'll see we still remember them. So having said that, go ahead. Let's go with the show, man.
All right. So we're going to get into some urban legends here, and we're going to dig deep into it and how, like I said, how they, affect the people, society, and maybe where did they come from, a little history behind it. And for that, we are going to turn it over to Jenny. So Jenny, the mic's all yours.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. I actually, for this conversation, I did bring in a few different ones from across I suppose Europe, but mostly in my region of the UK. But the first one that I think touches all points is we have in the UK, so like a national park, I suppose, and it's called Bodmin, and we have the local tale is it's the Beast of Bodmin Moor. So what it's actually meant to be is very much like the Sherlock Holmes Hound of the Baskervilles. This beast stalks you if you're out on the moor at night. You don't want to be left alone. It comes and gets livestock. It's a really well-known and well-revered creature on the moor. But the actual truth behind it is, I suppose, not quite as weird, but quite unusual. So what happened back in the 70s is people used to keep wildcats, big cats. And then the laws changed in the UK. So what people did, instead of taking the cats back to zoos and things, they basically let them free on this moor. Now, which is crazy when you think about it, but that's what I think, just to avoid the fine, effectively, they were like, we'll just release them onto this national park. I'm pretty sure most didn't survive because you're releasing a big cat onto quite a cold environment, but some actually have, which then became the legend of the Beast of Bodmin Moor. So the crazy thing is there's still some out there, and they're super timid. People say they spot them all the time. And there's a lot of livestock on this particular moor that's allowed to roam free. So they effectively have pretty good, places where they can go and feed. They've got sheep and all sorts on the moor to kind of keep them going. What I think is the most incredible thing is that they've survived the cold, to be honest, when they're definitely not adapted for the cold. But the legend that stems from it is very, very true. You don't particularly want to be out on this moor, during the night time, in case the Beast of Bodmin Moor might get you. Not that anyone has ever been able to capture one. So they're very, very, very elusive. And I don't know whether that's people haven't gone into research to capture them, because the farmers obviously are not happy. They are anymore, and it's now purely legend.
Now, Now, has there ever been any type of study done to see how many of those animals are actually out there?
I don't believe so. The only thing that you ever see is, and it makes the news. So there'll be someone who's gone for a walk and they've seen one walking across them or, further across from them. And now with the use of phones, so people will film it. But they're such timid creatures that nobody's really been able to track them down. And that's why it kind of got this mythical stance to it, because nobody knows if they're still around. People still are convinced that these beasts are still here. But yeah, there's been no hard statistics other than farmers finding their sheep half eaten the next morning, really.
Now, the little bit that I've dug into urban legends, and I really like the aspect of vampires in urban legends and how they were used to kind of, I guess, teach lessons almost, to mainly to younger people or to more of like the God-fearing people. So was this urban legend of the castle on it? Was this used in any way to maybe like teach kids, hey, don't go out at night, or don't go into this area at a certain time, or anything like along those lines?
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, for us as local children, the moors itself is quite dangerous to go out at night on your own, and obviously kids do. You want to go and play hooky, run around. So absolutely, it was a really good thing to keep us not doing that, because you don't want to come face to face with one. There's a few people that try to be a bit of daredevils, but yeah, absolutely, it was used as a way to make sure that we didn't run on more. I mean, that the legend aside, it's not great to run around on the national parks at night, because it's it snows, it's a pretty rough place as it is.
Right.
So absolutely, yeah, it was used for that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these, urban legends and stories were, like say you have the one of the vampire, and everybody kind of knows, the lore of the vampire mainly through movies and all that have come out, but really it seems going back centuries that even with like the vampire lore, that people in their own small communities, or even in their own home, put their certain little twist on it to kind of put it in use in their area. Especially if there was like a graveyard or something around. What's that?
No, Joe, I was going to say also, when you were saying that a lot of people used it to their own advantage, do remember, I'm almost positive that a lot of the vampire legends, especially up in the European area, I read something about Vlad, the original Dracula guy, where Dracula's castle prince file. What's his name? Vlad.
Vlad the Impaler.
Okay, right. He said they used to impale the people, and I guess that the reason of the impaling was just to cause the fear from anybody that would try to attack him. I think a lot of those legends of the vampire with the blood sucking and everything came from the actual impaling of people.
Right. Well, a lot of it came to that, and some of the other ones I've read, like they would have that. I know there was a specific community in Romania where they would tell the kids to, once you're done washing the pan, or I'm sorry, that after a meal that you had to wash the pots and pans, that if you didn't, they would attract vampires into the house and they would get you. So they kind of use that almost as like a scare tactic to make the kids, do their chores basically. And it also goes along the lines of, if you have a dirty house, it could attract vampires. If you don't upkeep a grave, it could attract vampires or ghouls, stuff like that. So they really use it to kind of scare kids into, doing the right thing and, doing their chores. They're the same thing with, there's some communities that if, that swearing would bring in these evil spirits or vampires. So in you're from Great Britain. Was there anything along those lines that where they really used these urban legends or these lores to install what's the word I'm looking for? I guess
fear. Install like fear.
Well, yeah, there's definitely that fear aspect, but to install, I guess to make kids, do their chores, to make them do the right thing, to act, good.
Obedience to the people, you're saying?
What's that?
To install some type of obedience to the people?
Right. Yeah. To install some type of obedience to the parents or to the community.
Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a range. I mean, so definitely on the lines of do something to fend off evil spirits. So one that comes to mind is it's a pagan ritual, and it happens in the new year, and it's basically a ritual that you have to do. There's two versions of it to ward off evil spirits for the new year. And so it's very similar to that. So the first version of it is actually surrounding the trees. So on New Year's Eve, you basically go, it's going to sound a little bit crazy, but let me tell you how it works. You have to soak some toast in cider, and you need to find the oldest tree or most magnificent, I think sometimes the old tale says, in the woods. And then you put that toast in that tree. And then you have to drop some cider around the tree and shoot your guns in the air. And that's supposed to ward off the spirits.
That sounds like a good time.
yeah. It's quite a drunken festival, to be honest. And it still happens in Scotland and where I'm from in the West Country. And the idea is that the evil spirits hide in the tree. So you have to go and almost shoo them out for the new year, effectively. And part of the legend is the tree is sleeping because it's the new year. So you're waking up the tree and you're shaking out and making a lot of noise to get rid of the evil spirits. So we do have a lot of stuff like that. I can't think of it exactly to do with chores, but the second part is they do make the children go around and call on all the people in the village and give them some cider for the again to ward off the spirits. So it's a little bit of a chore, but you're definitely getting the children to do things to help you ward off those evil spirits. But yeah, it's a pretty. If you ever get a chance to go to one, I highly recommend it. It's certainly a bit surreal, but it's probably because it's so pagan. There's always a lot of cider involved.
I could imagine.
that I'm sure it is. I got a quick question, Jenny, especially over in England. I mean, I've never been out that way. I've never been to the UK or any area outside the United States, which is kind of crazy. But I got a quick question. Is it true that there's mostly like in the afternoon, like a fog that comes around, like in New England?
Yeah. So there is truth in that rumor. We don't have it anymore, but what it actually was, in the Industrial Revolution, the coal fires would burn so strong that by the afternoon, the fog would roll in, which actually really bad across all the cities, the major cities in the UK. And we're talking like mid sort of 1850s onwards. So yeah, all through the Victorian era, that sort of thing. So absolutely, that was true, that fog and then I think it never kind of left, like you say, the folklore that the fog rolls in. But to be honest, it rains more than fog, but that's where it originated from. And it caused lots of problems because you genuinely couldn't see that much.
Now, have you ever heard of any, like maybe it would be around the smaller villages that are still very traditional? One of the stories I read a while back from Romania was that back in like the 1700s, and even earlier than that, and even some of them to this day, some of the very small ones that are remote and kind of just very isolationist, they're very weary of travelers and people coming into their village because they believe that people coming into their village could bring in bad omens, or that a person coming into their village is actually a vampire or some other type of ghoul. Do you ever hear any type of legends about that in England?
No, not so much there, but to be honest, probably because we're such a small place. So we pretty much know everyone. No, I'm just kidding. Probably, but I can definitely see that out, like you were mentioning, Romania way. It's a bigger country than people think. It does have a lot more remote parts, and I can fully understand that the traditions are probably kept much stronger. So if that was the tradition of worrying about new people coming into the town,
Right. And you can kind of see the social aspect of that too, where you wouldn't, even if somebody was traveling and coming into the village, you wouldn't want little kids just running up to some stranger, so that they would put these, the parents would put these stories behind it, so that way it would kind of scare the kids, away from these people, because you would never, especially if you're in a very remote part and someone just, pops up, whether they're out hiking or traveling or whatnot, you still wouldn't want, anybody just running up to them, or, so the parents, they would put these, they would basically install fear into the kids of this, and then they would just, over the years and centuries and all that, develop into these, these outlandish legends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say one of those really outlandish legends is, like, for example, I know the Philippine people have most of them, especially from like the old areas, I guess, or the more the urban areas of the Philippines. They think that there's life in the trees. Like, they literally think that the trees are alive and you can't cut them down and stuff, or that they are some type of spirit being. So I could see a lot, but the ambience over in London, especially such an old country like that, and if you did have back in the days where you had fog coming in, I'm sure that a lot of legends would grow out of there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the Jack Spring, which was basically kind of got merged a little bit into Jack the Ripper. When the fogs came into London, the legend was he was part devil, and he would jump across your rooftops and cause mayhem through the night. So, and that was came out of the fog as well. So absolutely, stuff came out from that, because it was, I suppose, really bizarre. Like, how do you explain why this bad air is coming in? And probably similarly to the Romanian visitors coming in, because you mentioned that was also started around the 16th century. Do you think that's perhaps also to do with the Black Plague? Because if you think about it, traditionally, like, people would have come to town, and maybe the plague would have come, so then they assumed that that was a curse, or that person had come to put a curse on the town.
Yeah,
so maybe that's also why they were a bit wary with strangers.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think that played a huge role in a lot of the stories, and not only the Black Plague, but just, diseases and sickness in general, because, if you're looking, say 1600s, especially if you're in a remote area and you don't know too much about, modern medicine or diseases, it's very easy to attribute, someone being sick to an evil spirit, or, a vampire or a ghost or a ghoul or anything like that, because as human nature is that you try to find answers for something, and that might be the only thing that are these stories, to attribute. This person, they got the flu. Well, we attribute. There was a week ago, there was a guy that showed up in the village passing through, and he was a vampire, or any something like that. So I think that plays a huge role in it, and I think today, in some respects, that people that are still very superstitious, excuse me, that they attribute some of that stuff to stories like that, especially a lot of you see it in a lot of people that are very religious. If something bad happens or if somebody's sick, they attribute it to the devil. Even though we are a very modern and technological society, there's still that aspect of human nature where you want to attribute it to something that's supernatural or unexplained.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question, Jenny. Have you ever traveled over to Romania?
No, I haven't actually. I've traveled through most of the rest of Europe, but not that side, unfortunately.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, but we do have quite a lot of their folklore, because it is quite strong in Romania in a nice way. So it's something that people do know a lot about.
Well, something, Jenny, when you look at it too, if you think here in the States, we carry a lot of those things with us, because from the old country, you have the Black Plague. From the Black Plague, one of the kids' children's song today, which is Ring Around the Rosie, I mean, that comes directly from the Black Plague of Europe, because that's where, when the bodies, I think, were dying and stuff, it was like they had to believe that if you took a rose and how's that, Joe? Do you remember that? Can you?
I don't know the specifics of it. I do know that, yeah, it is attributed to the Black Plague. A lot of stuff. There's even thought that clowns, the clown makeup and all that comes from victims of the Black Plague.
Oh, wow.
I've heard that.
The different faces, the different coloring of the faces, the redding of the nose and all that. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these stories do come from illnesses and stuff like that. But Jenny, what are some other stories that you got from over in the old country?
I've got a few, but I probably just wanted to mention quickly. So, Ed, you're right, that Ringarosi tale is actually to do with, and I don't know if you've ever seen the photos of people during the plague that would treat the victims, but they would put on, it almost looked like a beak, like a leather beak they'd strap to their face, very similar to what we've got our masks now, but it was very cone shaped, and they would fill it full of flowers, so posies, because they believed that the plague was spread through the bad air, even though nowadays we knew it wasn't, it was bacteria. So if they were trying to treat the plague victims, you'd see these quite frightening looking people come in with these huge, almost beak-like leather masks, way worse than what we're wearing today, full of posies.
Yeah, and they also use that to mask the smell of the dead bodies and all that, so you get that flower smell. And
weren't you using that, Joe?
What's that?
Weren't you using that one time I saw you?
Every day, almost. Okay. God, could you imagine people walking around now with those things?
That's pretty damn scary, man. I've seen some of those.
I know. And so that also makes me think, because I've never realized the connection for the clowns, that's probably also why, because I'm sure they looked really quite frightening walking through the streets. They were very dressed up in these unusual costumes to treat the plague victims.
Awesome. So what other stories you got for us, Jenny?
So I thought we could touch on King Arthur, because that's also just down the road from where I used to live.
King Arthur? Oh, sure.
Yes, yeah. So hopefully you've heard that particular legend.
We have a king. I'm saying we have a king. His name is King Todd. He's king of the sea monkeys. But go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Sorry, King Todd. This one's long gone. Don't worry. So King Arthur the legend goes that he was born in Tintagel Castle, so Tintegel, which is over in Cornwall, which is just below Wales in the UK. So Cornwall's a really unique place. It's still very pagan. It's they have their own Gaelic version of a language, so they have their own language and flag, actually. So the legend came from Cornwall. And they still have a lot of stuff intrinsic in their folklore. So they still believe in pixies. That also spreads into the next county, Dartmoor. They're very, traditionally, it's very superstitious, but that's where was born, and all of the legend, the Knights of the Round Stone. So they claim that that's where it comes from. I'm not sure, apart from it being just well-known folklore, if it's got any morals that came out of that particular one.
Well, I think the biggest moral that came out of the King Arthur legend would be equality, basically, because he, even though he was the king and he had his knights, which were his subordinates, every time they met, they always sat at a round table, which meant that everybody was equal. There was no head of the table, and I believe there's even a part of the story where they were meeting, and a bishop from the Catholic Church came in, and he was looking for a head of the table. And King Arthur told him, there is no head of the table. When we meet, we are all equals. And that was the whole meaning of sitting at the round table, that there is, even though he is the king and he is the head, but when they meet, everybody's on the same level. So if there is any input or anything like that, they're free to do that, because there is no chain of command or somebody higher than another person. Is that correct on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Which is great if you think about it, because the legend is so old, and we're talking centuries old, that they at least had that notion to begin with, down there. Yeah, and it's a very, I think it's even meant to be over 1,000 years old. That legend. It is a really old legend.
1,000? I wasn't sure it was that old.
Yeah,
Let me ask you a question. Jenny, I was watching something in the History Channel a few days ago, and it was showing the Nessie, you know, the Loch
Oh,
Ness
Loch
monster.
Ness.
What do you got to say about him?
Now, that is a place I have been to. Very
You have,
beautiful.
really?
Yeah, very beautiful. With whether you spot to go and have a look, because it's up near between. It's sort of in the Highlands. There's a very long loch that starts at the tip of Inverness. I tried my best to spot Nessie. I don't think I managed to. I spent many hours sort of looking at, especially if it's a little bit windy, like seeing if every peak might be the Loch Ness monster. The loch itself is really deep, and it's connected to the sea at the very end. So I think with Nessie, you probably can get some really large creatures in there.
Really?
I don't know whether it's that people perhaps at some point spotted whales, or whether there were genuinely some prehistoric animals. The part of Scotland it is was, you know, in the ice age. Like it's very, I think, reasonable that something very prehistoric could be in there. It's a really deep lake. So I think it's possible for something to be in there for sure. I couldn't spot it though. It was really sad.
You know, we're gonna have to ask that question. We have a good friend, Todd Matchin. You know, he's the one we call the King of the Sea Monkeys. Lately,
Brilliant.
he's gotten the title of King of the Sea. He might have some ideas of what's going on there, because he probably has Nessie locked up somewhere.
Todd's listening to this and shaking his head now.
I know. That's why I'm bringing it up. You know something that's interesting that you said that, because they actually had this special, and a guy actually caught on film for the first time what looked like, I mean, it was definitely over, I think, 20, 30 feet long. So it wouldn't be an electric eel or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was able to catch it with his camcorder. This was about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And they have a whole special. You know, the old show, well, I'm sure you probably don't remember Leonard Nimoy when he had In Search Of. There's a new version of the show now. And there's actually a 4-part thing on the Loch Ness Monster. And I was watching it yesterday. I was, you know, now that you bought all those, and the fact that you went there, that's really fascinating.
I definitely could see something large could be in that loch, like no problem at all. So I mean, probably why some things hide so well as well.
What's your personal take on it, Jenny? Do you think that there is some kind of undiscovered species in there, or do you think it's just a lot of, you know, hype to get tourists into the area?
I mean, I would love nothing more than Nessie to be real, because I think that would be so cool.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like it might be a bit of hype. I mean, there's definitely things like, you know, sometimes porpoises and stuff get in. There's definitely big things in there. But yeah, I think it's done well. I mean, the whole industry around that, and it's a beautiful loch, but they do have many. So why particularly that? And it's just so busy, or obviously pre-COVID with tourists. You know, they've done a very good marketing job either way. Whether the people local believe it or not, they've done very well out of it.
You know, sure. I was actually looking up. Loch is in parts 5,000 feet deep. That's pretty deep.
Right. Yeah. So you definitely could hide something big.
Yeah, I would. I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think there's a lot of hype to it. I mean, it would be cool if there was some undiscovered species, and I mean they're very
so cool.
Yeah, they're very well could be, but I kind of think that it's you know, a lot of hype to it.
Well, Joe, let's take for example, we all know that the biggest legend of all is Bigfoot, okay? But now when you say the Yeti, Bigfoot, it's all really the same character in different traditions. You have Bigfoot, the abominable snowman, the Yeti, and at the end of the day, it's all Bigfoot. You have Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. Now, I think they were comparing him to another monster from a close by lake or something. And Jenny, maybe you know which one I'm talking about. That they said it kind of runs into Loch Ness. I forgot. I can't remember right now the name of the creature, but it's similar in the area. Are you familiar with it or no?
No, I'm not.
No.
They got jealous and wanted their own Loch Ness monster.
Yeah, Todd wanted to make his own there, but it didn't work up in Pittsburgh. You know.
Hey, Jenny, are you familiar with the Legend of St. George and the Dragon?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you
patron
tell us a
saint.
little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
So he is the obviously the English flag. However, I don't believe he ever went to England. He was down in Georgia, which is sort of southern Europe, ironically. So I think he's our patron. He's probably never set foot in our grounds. So allegedly, he killed off all of the last dragons, which actually used to be a really good fable when we were younger. We used to tease each other whether it was dinosaur bones or dragon bones. When people were discovering things like that. But that's what he's famous for. So he's famous for, banishing Earth of these awful creatures way back when, which you think they must have believed it at the time because they made him a saint for it. So you just think people definitely, whether he told that tale or whether he produced a few snakes and said he cut their wings off, who knows? There's other saints like obviously St. Paddy's for Ireland. The reason he's the patron saint is he allegedly got rid of all the snakes in Ireland. There's no snakes apparently in Ireland at all now.
Right. Yeah.
So similar thing. Maybe they're one and the same, and they just one country wanted one version, the other one wanted the bigger one with dragons.
Now, this is real. You're saying there's no snake. Is that real though?
I don't believe there are.
Really? Oh wow, Joe. Joe, write that down in your book.
So says their saint.
Yeah,
Joe, you got to write that down in the book. We got to take some snakes over there so they get a couple, man.
Yeah.
we got a lot here, you know.
That's kind of funny though. I mean, how the church used a lot of these, urban legends and all that to, canonize their saints and all that, and to spread these around to kind of, hype up the church a little bit. And
I'm going to tell you guys one. If there's a lot of things when we talk about all this legend stuff that go across the board from the different countries, the different things. Didn't we have a similar one here, Joe? Which it's kind of like the one Jenny said, reminded me of the chupacabra. Remember that one?
Yeah, I think that was more down in like
it started in South America, right? But then it was like all over the United States, and I think it kind of resembled when she said that they let the big cats out into the parks.
Which, maybe.
That one thing that a lot of people, and this is funny, this is a true story, Joe, and I don't know if we talked about it before or not, but back in the 1950s and 40s, they used to sell alligators through the mail. And Jenny, as I've told you before, we kind of do a lot of the mail order stuff, which is what I'm kind of the expert in. And in mail order back in the 1950s, they would send you a live alligator. And a lot of the people that bought the live alligator, especially in the city, started letting them out into the sewers. And a lot of the legends, that was true, that the alligators obviously grew a little bigger than you wanted them to. So that is kind of a legend that had a lot of truth behind it. Are you aware of that, Joe?
Yeah, you know what? I did hear that, and there's another one that goes along with that is about snakes coming up through toilets.
Oh my gosh.
that has happened a lot of times for real. So
yeah, and I remember hearing about that in the 80s, and here just this morning I heard a story on the radio while I was working out that I believe it was in maybe Pennsylvania, that there was a neighbor who had a pet snake, and one of the kids flushed it down the toilet, and it traveled through the pipes into the neighbor's toilet, and while the guy was going to the bathroom, it came out and bit him in his nether area.
Really?
That is a true story. So sometimes the urban legends are actually true.
I mean, one of the things like in Florida, for example, this is one of the things I hate about Florida. You leave your back door open, good luck. You have the weirdest creatures coming into your house. But that thing with the snake in the toilet has happened in Florida a couple of times throughout the years. So even like, for example, when we're talking about alligators, this was over like in Brooklyn, New York City. But you got to remember, New York City has so many old sewage lines and stuff that go on the entire city that who knows what's there. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people did throw, because what happened was when they bought the little kids bought their pet alligators, it started growing and you couldn't keep it anymore, So what did they do? They just let it loose. Oh, let's just throw it in the canal. Let's throw it. And then obviously legends come by. Bigfoot again. It's the one that I think most people love. There's been Bigfoot museums. There's so many things with it, and a lot of people still believe. Now, let's be honest. Just like you were saying, I know there's a hype because people are going to use it to market. They're going to make money from legends. But the truth about the ocean, the Loch Ness monster, I think there's more truth to it than fiction. Because if you think about it, you know how many different creatures we're discovering every year? For
Absolutely.
yeah, we thought that the giant squid was not real. They recently found squids that measure as much as 50, 60 feet long. The only problem is that they're so deep in the ocean, we don't see them. We only see humpback whales that dive in to get them, that have scars, because you can see they're fighting the squids down and whatever they are. But we've never actually had a live squid. But recently, I'm almost positive that they did actually get, for the first time in history, a video of a giant squid in its habitat, like down in the ocean.
Oh, wow.
But I mean,
yeah, there are several videos that people have taken of these giant squids, and a lot of these oceanographers all that say that we know more about outer space than we do of our own ocean. So there's a lot to say about that.
That's true. And just think about it. When you see those folklores from people back in the 1800s, where they have a big giant squid tearing down a ship, it might not be so fake, There might be something true to it.
Absolutely, because I think there was a story not too long ago that came out where a shark actually jumped out of the water at a boat or something like that. So, take that story and place it, 400 or 500 years ago. If people don't know what sharks are or whales and they're coming up out of the water, I mean, there's so many, we all played that game in school, where you whispered a secret to one person, and by the time it got to the last person, it was completely different. You guys ever play that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just imagine that you're traveling, through the oceans, and a whale comes out and hits your boat. You don't know what a whale is because you've never seen one or, heard of it. And 10 years later, that story, there's monsters coming out of the ocean, and it just could be embellished beyond belief. So yeah, you could definitely see stuff like that happening. Jenny, I got another one to ask you about: the ghost of the Gray Lady and Longleat House.
Oh, I was wondering if you're going to ask that one. Yes. Again, I so hope it's true, but I don't think it is.
I heard about that. I heard about that really long ago. Go ahead. We want to hear that.
Well, so she's basically been allegedly spotted by many, many, many people. From the pieces I've ever read about it, the Grey Lady is meant to be Lady Jane Grey. It's people confuse it. So I think some people say it's Henry VIII's third wife, and some people say it's the woman that tried to take the throne between his son Edward and Elizabeth. So someone tried to take over the throne for 12 days. Not really her choice, just some people made her do it, sort of thing, as you do. So one obviously died naturally over there, and the other one was beheaded. So that's why I think there's a bit of confusion as to who it is, because if you think about it, the one that was beheaded was probably a bit more vengeful, and the one that died probably just never left, is how they sort of say it. But there is a very famous piece of video showing her opening the doors of the property, or what appears to be something grey, very fuzzy, obviously, really hard to work out. And you can see the doors open, but lots of different people claim to have seen it. But again, I think it's one of those things where sometimes but yes, she's very famous all over the UK for that one. But very unfortunately, the classic thing where there's so many versions of that same story of who she might be, of why she's there, who's seen her, how many times they've seen her, do they have it on video? But there's definitely one of the things to do when you go there is to find her.
that castle, is it still? Is it a museum, or is it what are they doing with that now?
Yeah, you can go and visit. Yeah, you can go and visit it. So I'm not sure how much it is, to be honest, but I'm sure it's not too bad. But absolutely, you can go and do that.
So you could do your
have
own.
a look
I'm sure
around.
they have.
Do your own checking it out.
You know what you reminded me of with that, Joe? I don't know if you read in the news, lady, but it's gone viral in a couple of videos. There's some lady dressed in black walking through different states, and she's all black, and everybody's saying, who is the lady who's walking throughout the states, all black? Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's such, and it was kind of funny because my wife about 2 or 3 days ago, she was coming down, and there was this lady, which she had a wig on, but the wig was like the hair was long all the way up to her waist, past her waist. She had black boots. She had a black cape, and she had a cane, and she had a black covering over her face and a black hat, kind of like the movie Jeepers Creeper. And I was saying, wow, that's got to be, it's a very interesting, look. And that's where I saw that. But when you have, mentioning now the gray lady, whatever, it reminded me. But Jenny, you must have really a treasure chest of information and legends, because I mean, you come directly from the old country, and it's fascinating.
Well, the funny you think about it, because it's just like the stories growing up as well. And I think it's until like I've moved countries now, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some really weird stuff we believe or do or say. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Like for example, we've got so many strange quirks. Like we wouldn't wear black to a wedding because you're wishing death onto the wedding. You wear black for funeral clothes only. And so when I moved here and went to a wedding and saw people wearing black, I was horrified because nobody explained to me. I thought, oh my gosh, they hate the bride and groom. What are they doing? What else bizarre things? Oh, we have things like tar barrel running. So and nobody knows where this tradition has come from, but it's a really, really old tradition, a place in Cornwall called Ottery St. Mary. And what we do on just before Christmas, most of our stuff you'll notice happens, like all of our traditions and superstitions are around Christmas time. You'll probably sort of see, and it's a lot of it's very pagan because it's the winter, so it's a lot of them are trying to ward off evil spirits, make sure the harvest comes in. I think that's where a lot of it stems from. So we get normal wooden barrels that you'd have your beer or your whiskey in, and then we set a light. We put tar in the middle of the barrels and set them on light, and then one person is the king, I suppose, and he puts the barrel on his head and he runs through the streets of the city it's a village really. With this tar barrel, and you can actually, if you guys watch it, you can see it on YouTube. It's pretty fascinating. And then people take the barrel and run through the city. It's quite dangerous when you think about it because it's pretty fierce, the flames, and it's a competition of who can run through the city with the tar barrel. Basically, thousands and thousands of people turn up. It's crazy.
Isn't that the same thing as running with the bulls that they do every year? Which is
except you've got the barrel on your head.
Joe,
it's funny that you mentioned the holidays, because I've studied a lot of pagan traditions, and I consider myself I follow kind of like a pagan path, but not a practitioner, but more like a researcher. And it seems like the more that
Joe,
what's up?
You're fading in and out there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Come back.
Now we can. Yeah.
Okay. So the more that I've looked into a lot of pagan traditions and all that, a lot of it always seems to revolve around some type of holiday and warding off evil spirits and communing back with nature. No matter what country that you find these traditions in, it not all the time, but a majority of the time always revolves around a holiday and doing something to ward off evil spirits or to commune back with nature. And there are some of the bigger holidays, but there's also some little ones, like some of the ones that you were talking about. Some of these little communities have their very own traditions that when we look at them now, you're like, what the heck are these people thinking? Like running around with the barrel on fire. You look at that now, especially in the States. If I was to go outside and run around with the barrel on fire in the streets, I'd probably be arrested or something. But yeah, but you go to a smaller community, and it's something that's normal there. So I've always found that interesting that these different societies have these traditions. But if you were to take that tradition and move it somewhere else, they would look at you like you're absolutely crazy.
Yeah. What about when I was trying to jump off Niagara Falls in a barrel? You don't think that would work?
Only if it was a good barrel.
That was actually tried, right?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
several times.
The only one I remember is the Woody Woodpecker episode where the cop kept falling off the thing over and over. Oh, man.
So Jenny, what other traditions and lore do you have?
So probably more of a law thing, tradition that we have is again, do you know what? And I didn't mean to tell you all the ones that happen around holidays, but again, this is another one around the holidays. This is usually on Christmas
That's how they
Eve.
always seem to happen, yeah.
So we have, and just thinking of you saying like, because certain towns have their own tradition, and that's so true for where we are. So another really small town called Mousehole, again in Cornwall. There was a very famous fable that happened of the town centuries ago. Was there was no food, it was winter, everybody was starving, and there was a big storm coming in, and the one of the sailors said, look, I'm going to go and brave it, I'll go out to the sea. And everyone said, no, please don't do that, it's the big storm coming in, you'll die. Let's take his cat with him for company. He's going to go and get the fish and feed all the people so they don't have to starve. And then famously, the fable is that the reason that he could get out into the seas was the cat sang to the storm and calmed the storm. And they got the fish and they came back safely home through the storm, and it was a miracle. And then so every year now, to celebrate that, they put on a light festival, the Mousehole Light Festival, and send the lights out into the sea, because they're not going to send the cats out to sing anymore. So it'd be a bit strange, put them on boats. So they mark it with that, and then they also bake this very traditional pie called a stargazy pie, and it's so the fish from the region is called a pilchard, and the fish pie, the crust, they stick the fish's heads through the top of the crust so they can see the sky, to make sure that the storm doesn't come. So even the food that they eat with this tradition is replicating what apparently happened.
Now let me ask you a question. Is this a part of Europe or Asia? The one that I think one time a year they light up like a bunch of white hot air balloons and let them up into the air. They call like the Festival of Light. Am I correct in saying that, Joe?
That's I know they do that in like a lot of Asian countries where they have the sky, they call them sky lanterns.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is that's where when I used to send out that mail order thing, it said free flying saucer plans. It would show a person how to make one of those sky lanterns, kind of, and it was very cool when it took off. In the
nice.
You see the ambience, because what it would do is you would tell the people to take like a hot air balloon, not a hot air balloon, but like a laundry bag from a dry cleaner, and you would interlock 4 straws, and you would put candles in it, and then when you have obviously lit the candles, it would start floating the balloon. It would take off. But if in your mind you think what I'm saying, you're going up there, it's a clear plastic bag, and you see this ambience or light flickering on and off, it would look pretty crazy, I know Joe would take out his camera and definitely be telling Todd that he had seen a flying saucer, right, Joe?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
well, I tell you, one of the traditions that I have that goes back in my family for years, because I have on one side is they came from Czechoslovakia, and on my mother's side, on my father's side, they all came from England. But on my Slovak side, during on New Year's Eve, once the clock struck midnight, you had to sweep out your house. You had to open up a door, and you had to sweep out the house, and then immediately after that, you had to eat pork and sauerkraut. And I guess the reasoning behind that was that you were sweeping out all the evil spirits, and you had the door open for the good spirits to come in, and then you ate the pork and sauerkraut for good luck. So
That's so cool.
Yeah, so we've done that in my family for, as long as I could remember. I don't know, I remember back in the 80s when I was young. I don't know how far back that went in my family, or if they brought that over from the old country or not. But, I always thought that was a cool tradition. And, I've also talked to some other people that have similar traditions to that, where at midnight on New Year's Eve, they'll open up all their windows, and they'll get maybe a pillow cover or something, and they'll kind of fan out the evil spirits, and give some good intentions for good spirits to come in. Some people, they'll light incense and walk around the house. Other people, they have different foods that they eat, and I've heard a ton of different traditions on foods that they eat at midnight for good luck. So do you have anything like that in your family, or have you heard of anything like that, on like New Year's Eve where people would do traditions like that?
The only one I know of, but it doesn't have to be only New Year's Eve, is burning the sage, because that cleanses your house of evil spirits. So you get some very dry sage and burn it and waft the smoke around to cleanse your house. People definitely do it on New Year's, 100%. But I think people do it if they're just having a bad vibes. I don't know.
I probably do
it's
this.
not
I probably
exclusive,
do the sage. I probably do the sage once a week at my house.
Oh, right. There you go. Okay,
I
so
love the
everyone
smell
knows
of it.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
supposed to. It's a very old. Well, like you say, if you know obviously the pagan traditions, it's a very old one of cleansing from the evil spirits in your house.
Right, and that goes back, from the pagan traditions, a lot from the Native American traditions too. They were real big on using sage to cleanse evil spirits, and I don't know if it's maybe just in my head or whatnot, but every time I burn it and say some good intentions, it always makes me feel a little bit better. So whether there's anything supernatural behind it, or if it's all in my head, it works. And I think that's how a lot of these superstitions are, that no matter what the reasoning is behind it, or the science behind it, or whatnot, if it works for you, I think people are going to keep doing it. And why not? If it's not causing any harm and it makes you feel better, why not do it?
Plus, it smells nice.
That too, yeah, absolutely.
You guys reminded me of something that's totally the opposite. Especially in Cuba, there's a tradition when it's thunder and you want to ward off thunder, they take a horn from a bull and they burn it. The problem is that oh gosh, the smell is horrible, man.
Oh, wow.
Because when you burn it's kind of like burning hair. You know the smell from hair.
Oh,
When you
yes.
when you burn because they think that the thunder would go away if you burn it. I remember my mom trying to do that, when I was very little. But something, when the more you think about stuff like that, it's kind of, when you look at it, I think the ground for a lot of this stuff is like 90% of the world, especially Christian. Now, I'm a Christian. We'll read the Bible and know that Jesus is God, God the Father, whatever, etc. A simple thing, but yet you'll have traditions come out from biblical contents and stuff, and they all do it according to the society and where they live in, or the villages where they live in, and tradition grows that way. One good example today is I'm standing in the park, and this is not tradition. This is more like I think a cult that's developing lately, which I'm sitting in the park and some lady and guy with a kid comes out, and I'm there with my grandson. I was taking him to the park today, and she goes to me, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Mother of God?" Something like that. And I'm like, wow, because I've heard this is coming, and happens a lot in Atlantic City. It's happening in a lot of places around New Jersey in the northern area. And when you go back to our countries, especially as back in the 1900s, 1800s, and a good example, if you go to Florida, and I love this, I love doing this, Joe, because I love the way it looks, the ambience. But if you walk in the ocean late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, when it's pitch dark and the ocean is there, you can swear you can see boats, ghost ships coming by. It's one of the most fascinating time that you can actually walk by the beach,
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I hate to cut you off. We're down to a minute and a half here. So we're going to be wrapping up the podcast here. What an excellent talk that was. And Jenny, we're going to have you on again, because there's so much legends and lore to cover here that, we could do several of these. But just to give us a final word or some of your final thoughts real quick.
Well, I think actually today I didn't realize how many different places had the different traditions. You pointed that out earlier. So I think next time I'm going to try and find out like more local versions of it, because I can tell you a lot about my local area ones, which is the 4 or 5 that we covered. But I probably could have a little, Scotland has some amazing folklore, like we were saying with Loch Ness and so on, and probably more rich than my area. So it's now just made me think, okay, what have I not looked at? Shoot,
Awesome.
I've missed so much.
Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely going to have you on again and talk this, because it's such an exciting topic, and there's so much to dig into.
A really quick question here: between Scotland, Ireland, and England, which one you think has the best folklore? Or Germany?
Well, I don't know about Germany, so I think Scotland. I think we could dig up the most stuff with Scotland.
Scotland, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Ireland would be a very close second, though. I imagine there's some really cool things in Ireland.
Awesome. And on that note, we're going to end it here. And Jenny, thank you for joining us. I can't wait to stop by again, and we'll talk some legends and lore. So, Jenny, Eddie, good night. Everyone out there in podcast land, thanks for stopping by, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.